Good afternoon. As we come to the close of our 6th annual conference, the Board of Directors of Reentry Alliance for Louisiana would like to thank everyone who participated in this virtual conference. We thank you so much for your patience. As you know, we started this out by saying this is a first for us. A special thanks to all of our presenters for providing important information that will help to further the efforts of reintegration for so many. We know that addressing concerns of returning citizens, getting them back to work, helping them to reconcile with their families has a direct impact on the economies of our local communities and the state as a whole. When they succeed, they pay taxes, support businesses in our communities, and it can also provide a sense of stability in the households, which helps their children. You may not fully realize the impact of what you're doing for years to come. On behalf of our board, we'd also like to thank Mrs. Ann Sanders, our conference chairperson, without whose invaluable work this conference might not have happened. We ask that you keep our partners in Lake Charles, Lafayette, Jackson Parish, St. Martin Parish, St. Mary Parish, and other areas who were affected by the recent hurricane in your prayers. We want to offer a thanks to Drexel Dorsey for the work that he's doing to help, and for everyone else, please reach out and see if you can help in any way. You will receive an evaluation. Please, please, please complete the evaluation. We want to know what we did right, and just as importantly, what we can do better next time. We encourage you to become a partner with REAL. Visit our website, sign up to receive our newsletter, and share the work that you're doing so it can become a part of our clearinghouse and your work can be shared with others. If you've taken some ideas from the sessions, we ask that you let us know how you're using the information to further your mission. And if we can be of further assistance, do not hesitate to contact us. And now, I'd like to introduce our final plenary speaker who will close out our conference, the Reverend Dr. W. Wilson Goode, Sr. And we'll see you next year. Reverend Dr. Goode is a director and organizer of the nationally acclaimed Amachi program, a national faith-based mentoring model for children of incarcerated parents. Because of his innovative and groundbreaking work, in 2006, he received 2 prestigious awards: the Civic Ventures $100,000 Purpose Prize and the Philadelphia Inquirer's Citizen of the Year. He is an ordained Baptist minister with over 50 years service at the First Baptist Church of Pascal, located in Southwest Philadelphia. Dr. Goode is a veteran serving in the U.S. Army as an officer. He also led groundbreaking work in faith-based housing for low and moderate income individuals. He was the first African-American member and later chairman of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission, and he again broke racial barriers with his appointment as managing director for the city of Philadelphia. He would follow that as the city's first African-American mayor for 2 terms. He subsequently spent 7 years as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Education under the Clinton administration. He left that position in 2000 to help organize the Amachi program, which is now his ministry and his life's work. And just so you know, Amachi is a Nigerian word that means who knows but what God has brought us through this child. He has earned degrees from Morgan State University, a master's from the University of Pennsylvania, a doctorate from the East Baptist Theological Seminary, and 14 honorary doctorates. He is the chair of the Free Library of Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Leadership Foundation, and the Leadership Foundation of America. He is also the author of 2 books, and you all can write these down: In Good Faith and Building from the Ground Up. And last but certainly not least, he and his wife of over 50 years have 1 son, 2 daughters, and 2 granddaughters. Now, please help me welcome Dr. Goode.
Thank you very much. I am really delighted to be here at this 6th annual Real Help Conference. I want to say how delighted I am for all the hard work that many gave to get me on camera here today. So I'm glad to be on camera. There are a number of things from my childhood that shaped me and who I am and why I'm always seeking a purpose-driven agenda in whatever I do. I grew up as a sharecropper in Seaboard, North Carolina. Sharecropping is 1 step removed from slavery. Free slaves had no other way to earn a living, so they often became sharecroppers on the very same farm that they were once held as slaves. My father never attended school and never learned to read or write, and my mother completed the 8th grade. My 4 brothers never completed high school, and I was the first in my family to attend college. So education was always a primary priority for me. In 1949, when I was 11 years old, a hobo came to our house and knocked on our door and said he was hungry. I noticed that my mother was cooking supper, and at the time, and she never hesitated to invite him in to eat. He started to eat what I thought was our supper, and for a few minutes, I had a real attitude. I thought he was going to eat all of our supper, but just as quickly as I became upset, I looked at my mother and saw her unselfish spirit. And in that moment, a lot changed in me. So much so that as a hobo left, I ran after him. Having first gone to my room and taken every cent I had saved over the past year. And I ran after him saying, Mr. Hobo, and gave him all the change I had in the past year and had hidden it under my mattress. A few years later, my father had a dispute with the landlord and assaulted the landlord and was immediately arrested and put in jail. It was from that experience that my interest in prisons and prisoners and evolved. In 1954, while my father was still in prison, my family moved from North Carolina to Philadelphia, and I joined the First Baptist Church, Pasco. And the church members there became my mentors, became those who wanted to take care of me, especially the First Lady, Muriel Lemon. This was very important to me because as a son of an inmate coming from a sharecropping farm, my high school counselor told me never to think about going to college because I did not want to embarrass my family. So those church members became those who took care of me and said to me, you do belong in college. And they were sending me to college. They didn't ask me, they said, we're sending you to college. And so they did. And today I've earned a doctorate and 15 honorary doctorates and became the first African-American member and chairman of the PUC. the first African-American managing director for the city of Philadelphia, and the first African-American mayor of the city, and served 2 terms. My interest in prison ministry started from the very beginning, and mentoring children of prisoners because I am the child of an incarcerated father. And it would help if this nation recognized its historical failures to address racial inequality in this country and the narrative that they have created that justifies it. This country has rationalized racial inequality since Native Americans were subject to virtual genocide. Starting in 1619, 400,000 Africans were brought to this country in chains, enslaved, and that slavery has evolved in various forms until the day that now include the prison industrial complex. And that is legal slavery, according to the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. Let me give you an example on how it manifests itself today. I went to a prison and saw in that prison a grandfather, a father, and a grandson, and all in the prison at the same time. And the grandfather looked at me and says, "Dr. Goode, I want to tell you something. I have a son and a grandson in here, and I saw them for the first time here. And as I was leaving, the grandson said to me, I have a son that I've never seen, and I wonder whether I will see him for the first time in prison too." It is possible, ladies and gentlemen, to have 4 generations of the same family in prison at the same time. And that is a challenge we face today with the prison industrial complex. Sometime on my way home, I stop and I watch the children play. And I wonder, as I'm sure they wonder, what they will be someday. Some will dream big dreams and make them come true. Others will dream of things they will never do. We're all seeds in God's hands. And where we land, no one knows. Some will land in fertile soil and others will land in swampy area. We are all seeds in God's hand. We're all here to make sure our children land in fertile soil. Perhaps I can best illustrate my point with this story. There's a tribe in Kenya called the Maasai tribe, and they're known because they are mighty warriors. And known because they are fierce fighters and they are protectors of the women and children in the villages. Now, I speak of them today, however, not because they're mighty warriors, not because they are fierce fighters, but because of the way they greet one another. They don't do it the way we do it. We say good morning. We say good afternoon. We say good evening. However, they do it by asking the question. And the question is, how are the children? Not good morning, not good afternoon, but how are the children? Well, how are the children? How are the children? 2.5 million live in homeless shelters. How are the children? 1.2 million drop out of school every year. How are the children? 3.6 million are abused each year. 1.6 million run away from home each year. How are the children? There are more than 2,000 children serving in prisons in this country, life without parole. How are the children? 1.6 million worry where their next meal is coming from. How are the children? We stand here today, all of us. Thank you all for just showing up. Thank you for being a part of this. We stand here today on the edge of a new era in the history of helping with the opportunity to change the world around us for millions of children, those who are in prison and those in prison who have children. And I want to say, never have there been such challenges and never have there been such opportunities for us to contribute. So thank you all, real help for what you're doing with these children. And never have there been such a group of experienced people with passionate purpose to contribute to the solution of these children and adults in need. I want to announce that there is a new posse in the state of Louisiana, and I'm sure they're there to help rescue these children and adults in prison. In the year 2000, I left the U.S. Department of Education to devote my attention and the rest of my life to a rescue mission of children and adults in need. There are too many children in this country who wake up each day and there's no one who cares if they eat breakfast or if they do their homework or even if they went to school, what they did all day outside of school and with whom. And was it legal? And when they come home, if they had dinner, if they get enough sleep, and if they will eat breakfast the next day, and no one at home who cares about the difference between right or wrong. Or if they live to reach their 25th birthday, or go to jail, or drop out of school before they graduate, or will they have health insurance or use drugs or have HIV, AIDS, and whether they will ever get married and have a family. I reminded you earlier in this talk that I left the U.S. Department of Education in 2000 to go on a rescue mission, to work with children of the incarcerated, because I am a child of an incarcerated parent. And I know for sure what can happen if there is assistance given at the right time. I want to report to you that we started this rescue mission with 42 churches in 4 sections of Philadelphia and spent over 10 years spread over a 10-year period to all 50 states, working with 250 organizations. And we had a number of these groups in the state of Louisiana. And we were able to reach more than 350,000 children. I visited prisons in 44 states to collect the names of children from men and women who were incarcerated and who were able to recruit a loving, caring adult to mentor each of these children. 350,000 children are a lot of children that we have been working with. And what we learn from our work is this. Listen carefully, please. If there is a loving, caring adult who will consistently spend 1 hour once a week or 2 hours twice a month for at least 1 year, if we can find a loving, caring adult who will spend 1 hour once a week or 2 hours twice a month for at least 1 year, what we know is that 2/3 of these children will improve their grades. 2/3 of them will improve their behavior. And equally as important, 90% of these children improve the relationship with their siblings, with their peers, and with adults in their lives. So what we know for sure is, based upon our 20 years experience, is that if there is a loving, caring adult, spend 1 hour a week or 2 hours twice a month for at least 1 year, we can rescue 2/3 of these children. Let me just pause and let that sink in for a minute to you. If we can find enough adults to work with children who have a parent in prison, we can rescue 2/3 of those children. This is important because there are 10.7 million children with one or both parents in prison today, under some type of federal, state, or local supervision. To do nothing means that 70%, 70, of those children will end up in prison, So what we know now is that some children who were rescued by the Marchi program and its affiliates around the country are now doctors, are now lawyers, and many are college graduates. So ladies and gentlemen, the Marchi model worked. But what I knew 20 years ago, and what I know now is that this is a crisis. This is a crisis born decades ago in unfulfilled promises and great expectation. This is a crisis bred in battles of politics, economics, and race. This has been our history, but it cannot be our future excuses. We on this call, all of you out there, I can't see you, but you can see me, have a disproportionate burden to bear, a disproportionate charge to keep. We cannot and will not allow the errors of the past to dictate the possibilities of the future. What does all of this mean? There's a crisis in our criminal justice system today, all across this country, in Philadelphia, where I am, and in Louisiana, where you are. A crisis we must not ignore. We see the crisis in millions of lives in our communities that are affected by crime and the justice system. We experience it in disproportionate numbers of African Americans currently incarcerated in our nation jails and prisons. The crisis become larger as we consider the number of children, spouses, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, and significant others left behind to deal with the grief, hunger, and separation of this shame. The crisis is a tidal wave when we consider the projection pointing towards an ever increasing number of prisons under construction due to underachievement in inner city and poor children in today's elementary school. Someone said that people who build prisons go into cities and try to determine how many are dropping out at the 4th grade level, and they build prisons based upon that. The most recent number of incarceration of prisoners recently speak to the urgent need. America incarcerates its citizens at the highest rate, listen carefully, of the highest rate of any nation in the world. According to a Pew report, 1 in 9 black males between the ages of 20 and 34 is locked behind bars. Let me repeat that for you. That the Pew Charitable Trust reports that 1 in 9 black males between the ages of 20 and 34 is locked behind bars. Since 1974, the number of black males who have been incarcerated at some point grew from about 600,000 to, listen for this, folks, listen to this, to 2 million. And unless incarceration rates decline, about 1/3 of African American males are expected at some point in their lifetime to end up in prison, compared to 1 in 6 Latinos and 1 in 17 white males. We must build on what we have learned in the past 20 years. If we stop now of ensuring the fulfillment of the American dream for those people who are coming out of prison and who have children in need, we could end up in the next decade finding ourselves lost in a maze of an American nightmare. Our challenge is a great one, but such has been our history. Such is our legacy. We can, ladies and gentlemen, we can turn the tide of despair for the children and for their parents who are in prison. We can change the face of hopelessness. Some on this call are here because someone rescued you. I know that I would not be here had I not been rescued by that local church. Had they not taken up their nickels and dimes and quarters and sent me off to college, I will not be here where I am. We must hold on to the promise for which we have fought and continue to fight. So I cannot tell you how proud I am to speak to this gathering at this time, to congratulate you on the incredible work you do day in and day out. And you're changing the lives of children and adults throughout Louisiana. You are the difference between success and failure. Because of your work, young people who would have gone to jail will now become doctors and lawyers and scientists and engineers and mayors, governors, and who knows, one may end up as president of the United States of America. And I know that the future for your work may be uncertain. There may not be enough resources out there. You have to keep on fighting. Keep on fighting. We will reduce the prison population. Some folks ask me, when am I going to retire? I'm 82 years of age, been married 60 years, and I tell them that I cannot find the word retirement in the Bible. If people do not see a difference between us and others, then there's no compelling reason why they should become involved in our rescue mission of these children and adults who are in so much need. If we are not advocates for those children and youth and adults, others consider worthless are not worth the effort. If we end up not working on behalf of those that others regard as useless, disposable, and forgettable, then we're no better than they are who do nothing. If we do not advocate for children and adults in need and fight against those who regard them as unimportant because they're poor, because they're Black, because they are immigrants, and because they're in prison, or because they're returning citizens, or because they are defenseless, and because they are defenseless, then we're no better than they are. We have to be bold. We have to be brave and courageous. We must speak out against injustices. If we are living each day and no one is upset with us because what we're doing to advocate for these people in need, who need our help, and we're not saying it loud enough and bold enough and courageous enough. If no one is mad at us because of what we're doing, we're not saying it loud enough. We're not saying it loud enough. And there is something wrong with our social thermostat. If we can see injustice take place all around us and don't care about what happens, then we need to re-examine whether or not we can ever get where we need to be. As I said earlier, we are living at a time where we need to begin to change what is going on. When I was mayor of Philadelphia in the 1980s, my favorite place to visit was the Liberty Bell. Not only because it was the symbol of liberty, freedom, justice, and equality, but because it was crack. And the crack Liberty Bell represent to me that we are living in an imperfect democracy. We are yet becoming what we will be. But I submit to you that each time one of us, or any of us, can cause a loving, caring adult or a loving, caring child to take them where they need to be, our democracy moves a step closer to perfection. And that, my friend, is what this work is all about. And that's all that God requires of us, that we work as hard as we can. We have to meet children and adults where they are, not where we think they ought to be, but we have to meet them where they are. Remember that you are called to be an icon. You are not called. I made that mistake on purpose. Remember, you are not called to be an icon of wealth accumulation, but to be a vehicle of wealth distribution. You must say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. Perhaps I can illustrate this with a story. There was a woman with a tumor in her jaw, and she went to see a surgeon. The surgeon told her that he could fix it, but it would leave her face twisted. I know, she said, but please remove the tumor. And afterwards, after the tumor was removed, there she stood in the recovery room. She was probably not standing, but there she was in the recovery room. And so horrific was her face and her lips that the surgeon and the husband there with her were silent. And finally, the husband broke the silence and bent over to kiss her. But what he discovered was that he could not kiss her the way he used to kiss her because she had twisted lips. So in order to accommodate her, listen carefully, in order to accommodate her where she was, he had to twist his lips to accommodate her lips in order to meet her where she was. And I want to say to all of you, thank all of you who are part of what's going on here. Thank you for walking around with twisted lips. With twisted lips. That you are able to accommodate these men, women, and children where they are. And thank you for recognizing that it's all in your hand. There was a wise old blind woman who lived in an inner city neighborhood, probably in New Orleans. And her reputation was known throughout the city. But there were some younger folk who did not believe what they heard about her. So they decided that they were going to go and confront her. So they went to her house, knocked on her door, and she invited them in. And once inside, the youngest of the group spoke and said, "Wise old blind lady, I have in my hand a bird. Tell me, wise old blind lady, is this bird living or dead?" The wise old blind lady did not respond immediately, but took her time, and then she spoke, and she said this to the young man: "Young man, I know not whether or not the bird in your hand is living or dead, but what I do know is whether that bird lives or dies, it is all in your hands." And it is clear now that we must continue this fight. Whether or not there are programs out there, whether or not we are doing what we need to do for these children and for these adults, is all in our hands. There's so many that don't care. There's so many that believe they got what they deserve. And so many tease them because their father or their mother are in prison. There was a young man watching a football game, probably not the Eagles, well, probably not New Orleans either, watching a football game. And after about an hour of watching the game, the young man said to his father, "This game is boring." That's the Eagles. "Come outside and play with me." The father said, "Son, I want to watch the rest of this game. You go outside and play, and come back in 5 minutes, and I will go out and play with you. The son obeyed and came back in 5 minutes, and the father still was not ready to go. So he said to the son, my team is about to score. Come back in 5 minutes. This time, while the father was outside, while the son rather was outside, the son looked to the side of his couch and saw a map of the world. And he took the map of the world and he tore it into small pieces and said to his son, you go outside and you put this world back together. And then when you come back, I will go outside and play with you. The son came back within 5 minutes, and the father said, well, did you do it? He said, yes. Came back with the world all put back together. And so he was surprised. He was amazed at that and said, how in the world did you do it? The son replied that on the other side of the map of the world was a child and an adult. And when I put that family back together, the whole world automatically came back together. Well, folks, in these uncertain times, we have a chance to put the world back together for our children and for our adults who are in need. We have a chance to put the world back together for our children and for our adults who are in need. There are those who place their faith in the weapons of the system, but we must place our faith in God. And if we can throw off the chains of fear, of indifference, and of ignorance, and rush forward, even though those around us tremble and warn us to play it safe, then the world will praise us. I know people ask me all the time, why do you keep going? Why are you out there now? You're 82 years old. Why are you still out there making speeches on Zoom calls and on using all this technology? Why are you still out there? I'm committed to the struggle for a better tomorrow. I'm determined to stand with the prophetic voices of this community and the nation and suffer whatever must come to build a sure foundation for those who are less fortunate than I am. Let others make their deal with Pharaoh and forsake their principles to protect their profits. Let others do that. But I only want to be counted among those who will never give in to tyranny and never compromise with injustice. Because I believe that no matter what else exists, the message of Isaiah is true. There is still a stone in Zion. There's still a sure foundation, and one heart that won't stop trying can construct a righteous nation. Let me repeat that. One heart that will never stop trying can construct a righteous nation. A righteous nation that will not hide its beauty from some and reveal it to others. A nation where the beauty it bestows will abound for all who help to give it life. As a boy in the segregated South, I sang the song, America the Beautiful. But it was only about the beauty of the fields. It was only about the beauty of the fields, and not about the beauties of the cities. I believe that we must make America beautiful in the cities, as well as to establish the goal that I've had over the last 60 years. I have a friend in Philadelphia named Charles Bowser, and he wrote these words to change America the beautiful. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for asphalt streets of joy, for decent schools and decent homes for every girl and boy. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for jobs and health and hope, for an end to crime and an end to lies and an end to devil dope. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for justice, sure and true. For an equal chance for all to try to make their dreams come true. America, America, God shine their grace on thee, and crown their good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. When times get tough, people get going. 34 years ago, when I ran for mayor, city was facing a difficult time, difficult challenges. And I went all across the city and I campaigned, and I would campaign and talk about a problem and say, will you help? There are too many people in jail. There are too many people in jail today. There are too many children out there without anyone to care about them. There are too many people coming out of jail and no one cares what happens to them. Will you help? Will you help those out there who are helping to get this done? Will you help the children? Let me be clear. We must work together to overcome an unequal history, which indeed exists throughout this country. The doors of hope must be open to all alike. We must work hard to enable all to develop their abilities and to pursue individual happiness. Unless we are committed to these fundamental principles, we cannot have the kind of America that we need and desire. Whatever your assignment, whatever your pursuit, whatever it is that you think you were put here by God for, will you help? Will you help change the status quo? Will you help children who have parents in prison? Will you help adults who are in prison, and help the men and women who come out of prison so that they too will have a second chance? If you help, I guarantee you, if enough of us help, we can turn this country upside down. Thank you all so much. May God bless you and may God keep you. And thank you for the incredible work that you do in the state of Louisiana.